Sonic Spinball for the Sega Genesis. As I mentioned earlier with my clip on the Game Gear version of this game, I've just never been a huge fan of Sonic Spinball. I know a lot of Sonic fans really like it, but I've just never been a huge fan of it. And that's not to say like the game's bad or anything, it's just not one of my favorites. It controls well, it looks really nice, and I would say it's well designed, and it's a really innovative idea stemming from the Casino Night Zone from Sonic 2. But yeah, it just was never really hit home for me, and it's kind of interesting that, yeah, Robotnik somehow conveniently made a volcanic pinball defense system. Kind of convenient for a game. Sonic R. This game was one of those games that I actually played a ton as a kid, but looking back on it and playing it now, it's not that great of a game. It's basically way too short, and it's way too easy. And also, the designs of the levels are kind of very strange sometimes, and it doesn't really control very well for a racer. Yeah, and I just never was a huge fan of it. And I also thought, like, they were kind of interesting, the robot clones, like you see Robo Knuckles here, but they were never used anywhere else. The only one who is a mainstay character was Metal Sonic. However, one of the best things in the game was Super Sonic. Super Sonic was awesome. If you ever lost a game as Super Sonic, you sucked at this game, because Super Sonic was like 10 times better than any racer in the game. And what was up with the music in this game? I don't understand the music in this game. Horrible selections. Sonic 1 for the Sega Game Gear. This game was interesting in that it was Sonic 1 just on the Game Gear, but it was also original as well. Like, it included Scrap Brain Zone and Green Hill Zone, but it also had its own unique levels, and the gameplay style varied. Like, there weren't special stages, you had to manually collect the Chaos Emeralds. It had this spin dash thing where you could like launch yourself forever, like you saw I just did there. That was loads of fun. Yeah, but one thing about this game is that it's very difficult. It is so much harder than the Genesis version of the game, and that was kind of like how most of the regular Game Gear games came in the beginning. They were so much more difficult than their Genesis counterparts. Yeah, but this game also, the bosses were probably the most difficult part of it, except for the very first boss. The very first boss, basically, as you can see right here, he just moves back and forth and lets you hit him. That's all there is to this boss. It's the easiest Sonic boss ever. My favorite level in the game is definitely the side-scrolling bridge level. For some reason, I just found this level very interesting, because it was kind of like Green Hill Zone, but it was different. It had like the flowing water and everything, which actually looked really nice for an 8-bit system. Yeah, and it was just different. It was creative. Sonic Riders Zero Gravity. This game was really fun, I think, but it was just way too short and way too easy, and it almost feels like, even though the graphics are improved, it's almost a downgraded version of the original Sonic Riders. They kind of dummied it down a little bit. I did think like the gravity controls were interesting, even though this thing right here, the super gravity thing, you hit the floating things to actually make yourself go faster. I don't really know how that works. The gravity control definitely introduced interesting variety to the tracks. I really didn't like how they got rid of the boost though, because that added an interesting aspect to the original game, and they got rid of the turbulence as well, and being able to do tricks on the turbulence. I thought that was a really cool catch-up mechanic in the first game, and also just tricks in general. It came down to just pressing the jump button at the right time on the ramp rather than having to charge it up and release it at the right time. So getting like the power-ups on the jumps was like super incredibly easy. So yeah, it wasn't much of a challenge, this game. That's what I don't like about it. Sonic the Hedgehog 2 for the Sega Game Gear. I actually really liked playing this game. It was actually the first Sonic Game Gear game that I ever played, and so I remember it from being a kid, but the problem with this game is that it's just super incredibly difficult. This is by far the most difficult Sonic platformer ever made. The levels are difficult and they're unforgiving, and they give you no rings for very difficult bosses, so it's like impossible to beat this game. If you can beat this game, you're very talented. I do really like in this game that the ideas are very original, like the underground zone right here. This was like my favorite stage in the game. It's something that it's a level layout that you don't really see in a Sonic game, so it's just kind of cool. And as you can tell right here, I can't show any more footage past the first level because I can't even get past that. Sonic Unleashed for the Wii and PS2. I played the Wii version, and yes, I was one of the people who bought both the Wii version and the PS3 version. This version is far inferior to the PS3 version. However, Sonic Unleashed has like the coolest opening cutscene ever. They really nailed that. However, this is far inferior just because the Sonic levels, while they're fun and controlled really well, they aren't very challenging at all. I mean, as you can see in this gameplay video right here, I hardly even come across an enemy. It's basically just running straight and boosting. Yeah, one thing that I would take from this game and put it in the PS3 version was how well the jump control worked, and the sliding, the drifting, that was really well incorporated. I really liked the control of that. However, one of the things that drove me up the wall in this game was that you couldn't hold the boost button. That was such a downgrade from the PS3 version, because it just made it feel really choppy. And the big problem with this game is that the Sonic levels the daytime levels were the high point of this game. However, it was like a 70-30 split between the Werehog, and the Werehog in this game was awful. In the PS3 version, I was able to stand it because it actually like controlled well, and it was kind of fun. It was okay. It wasn't horrible. But in this game, it's just a mess. I absolutely hated playing the Werehog stages in this game, and they just shoved them down your throat. Like I said, it's like 70% of the game is a Werehog. Sonic got one daytime level. The Werehog got three nighttime levels. So, and each one lasted like 8 minutes, and it was just button mashing. I used the GameCube controller, so it was just hitting the trigger. And the final boss was really much worse than the PS3 version. And just a general note, I hate Chip. What were they thinking with Chip in this game? You get great conversations like this.
Oh, right. I'm just scared.
Yeah.
Scared?
Sonic Chaos for the Sega Game Gear. If I could sum up this game in one word, I would say safe. There's nothing really bad about this game. There's nothing really spectacular about this game. I mean, and for Sonic standards, that makes it still a really fun game to play, but there's nothing about this game that really stands out. You've got your generic first level, and yeah, all the levels are really the same. Like, yeah, you've got a water level, you've got kind of like a metropolis level. It kind of seems like it was a moneymaker. It's a lot. They really fixed the difficulty though. It's a lot less difficult than Sonic 2 was, so it's actually somewhat playable. They did include the Super Peel Out from Sonic CD. I thought that was kind of interesting, and I really actually like these rocket shoes. The rocket shoes were a nice addition, and the levels were designed well to incorporate them. But this game does have like one of my favorite Sonic music tracks ever, Mecha Green Hill Zone. I just absolutely love this music. I easily rank it in my top 10 Sonic tracks. It's just really awesome. But other than that, in conclusion, like I said, it controls well. It's a good Sonic game, fun to play, but it's a lot of the same. There's nothing very original in this one, and I know I complained about that with Sonic Pocket Adventure, but this was earlier on, so it gets away with it.